sink to an embarrassing new low, all those and more. Golick, how we feeling?
Not great. Not great.
That was a rough one.
It was a rough one. Listen, it was a great cut. You look forward to the 7 ranked teams, and it turns out 8 teams in the top 25 ended up losing. Well, you knew at least 7 it was going to happen with ranked playing. The shame of it was certainly the game I was looking forward to, which was in the exact same field of the national championship game in 2013 when Notre Dame lost to Alabama. And just the destruction that was there. But Auburn and Georgia, I mean, kudos to Auburn, and we'll talk about them and what they have in front of them. But you sit there and wait for these games, and then 2 of the biggest ones turn out to be blowouts. The Alabama-Mississippi State game, what a game that was.
Terrific.
All the way down to the end. But that's the downside when you look forward to so many games and you want them to be great games. They can be blowouts. And then certainly when the blowout doesn't go in your favor, the team you're rooting for, there were visions of 2013 title game again, and that because it was the exact same field for Notre Dame playing Miami. That's where the title game was. It was just a different name then of the stadium. But to see a game that early get out of hand. And you're just like, wow, all that build up, and they certainly built it up as well as should have been built up to have the Miami Notre Dame have a meaningful game again like that. And we'll talk a lot about it, but it was a tough night in the Golick house. Wherever a Golick was around the country at that point, it was a difficult evening.
Yes, those of us who are lucky enough to be on one of your group chats, I was seeing the texts flying in, and I just sort of sat back and watched it all.
Entertaining, isn't it?
And there was a good deal of dismay, as you would imagine. And on the other side of it, obviously, everyone knows about our relationship with the Levitard Show, and those guys are out of their mind.
Oh,
Mike Ryan is out of his mind.
I didn't know Mike Ryan was that big of a Hurricane fan. And listen, they should be celebrating. I was happy I got a tweet back from The Rock, so I was excited about that.
That's nice.
He had The Rock had a nice bet with Golden Tate. Now Golden Tate's got to wear The Rock's jersey when he was at Miami, and the turnover chain as well. I'll be wearing the turnover chain. Jeff Fiegels, who I played with at Philly, and he went to the U. His son punted very well. His son's a true freshman punter for the U. Punted well in that game. I have to wear the turnover chain, and I have to send Jim Kelly 6 ribeyes as well. But it was interesting.
Not gonna lie to you, I hadn't noticed Miami punted much in that game. Did they punt?
Yeah, they. Okay, really?
Was there a lot of punting going on?
You want me to get you the number?
No,
it was multiple punts, and the reason I know that because there were multiple punts inside the 20.
Okay, yeah,
just like his dad did, Zach was doing as well. So I kept watching him, going, you want to root for the kid. I've known this kid since he was tiny, and now he's punting against my team. There's part of me. I hope he shanks it. No, I know. I'm just kidding. I don't want him to shank it at all.
That was remarkable. It was an amazing college Saturday, and I will go through it because I'm going to see if you agree. I think the roads are pretty clear. The paths are pretty clear.
And I think it was going to get that way. And I think, as we'll get into, I think Wisconsin may be the biggest cheerer of all that Notre Dame lost.
Yeah, I think you're correct. And there's one little thing one monkey wrench that could get thrown into my plan, and we'll see where we get. But in the meantime, let's go off the top here and catch up on what happened. Let's start with some of the NFL action from yesterday. And Golick, you and your Philadelphia Eagles teammates were getting mentioned left and right as Dak Prescott was getting sacked left and right. Tell everybody why.
He got sacked 8 times Sunday. It's the most by a Cowboy quarterback since Troy Aikman in 1991. And Troy was doing this game. It was brought up at the end. In that game, Clyde Simmons, back in 1991 for the Eagles, had 4.5 sacks. Jerome Brown had 2.5 sacks. Mike Pitts had 1 sack. Reggie White had 1 sack. And a guy named Mike Golick had 2 sacks in that game.
How about that?
Yeah. That was, but I'll tell you what a day for Adrian Claiborne, who had 6 of the 8 sacks. One of them, he was dropped off into coverage, and Dak started to run, and he came up and got him right at the line of scrimmage for a sack. But I want to get more into this game and the protection scheme, with Tyron Smith. We talk about Zeke Elliott. Tyron Smith being out. Chaz Green started there. Byron Bell ended up going in later in the game. Claiborne was just wearing them both out, and I don't understand some things that went on and what may go on down the line with this. But, man, kudos to Atlanta. Atlanta just absolutely took it to them offensively as well. Put Dallas in a situation where they couldn't run as much as they wanted to, because when they ran, they were still somewhat successful running, but Atlanta, jumped out to that lead.
So it was an interesting game during the game and also interesting before the game as the two owners, Arthur Blank and Jerry Jones, were both on the field at the same time. And we will get into that in just a few minutes. In the meantime, the Saints destroyed the Bills in Buffalo yesterday. These were the two teams 2 weeks ago. Everyone was talking about, wow, look at the surprising Saints and look at the surprising Bills. And then the Bills laid an egg on a Thursday night against the Jets and then just got their doors blown off by New Orleans yesterday.
Let's just for a moment understand what's going on with the Saints. Okay, first, kudos to Dennis Allen, the D coordinator, is on a second stint with the New Orleans Saints. They held that Buffalo offense to under 200 yards. That defense has been playing lights out, and that's one of the monster reasons they are where they are. But on the offensive side of the ball, when you ever talk about Saints offense, who do you talk about? You talk about Drew Brees. Yesterday, this team rushed for 6 touchdowns, passed for none, and ran for 298 yards. The New Orleans Saints are the number 3 rushing team in the NFL, averaging 142 yards a game. And a great stat Hembo gave me before the game. What are you built for? We talk about a dome team. Are they built for the dome?
Right.
They are 4-0 outside, plus 87 in points, outside. And they're running the ball with the two head of Kamara and of Ingram, so they can run the ball, so they can be built to do the playoffs outside as well as in the dome.
Remember, this is the team that brought in Adrian Peterson during the offseason, and then it didn't fit at all, and they're running the ball.
The best thing that happened was them not even having him involved anymore to have to worry about giving him carries. Just let these other two guys do it. They are getting it done. I mean, they are absolutely getting it done. Ingram and Kamara became the third set of Saints teammates to each record 100 rushing yards and rushing touchdowns in the same game. Hadn't been done since Reggie Bush and Deuce McAllister back in 2006.
Brees didn't throw a touchdown, but he did run for one.
They did.
Patriots, and we're going to start with this game right out of off the top, but they went to Denver and just took apart the Broncos in all 3 phases, and I emphasize that, A, because they always do, and B, because in this game, the special teams were an enormous factor.
Yeah, after the Denver answered a New England touchdown with a field goal, Deion Lewis went 103 yards with that kickoff return and just opened up. They had a 27-9 lead at halftime. That's just a position that's very tough to be in because Denver loves playing from ahead. That way their defense can just tee off. And Tom Brady even mentioned that after the game. He said you can't let that defense just be able to run loose, and they couldn't last night. 3 tight ends involved last night. Gronkowski had 4 catches. Bennett,
Martellus Bennett
all of a sudden,
better than ever,
had the bad wing over in Green Bay and ended up out of there. Had 3 catches, and Dwayne Allen had his first catch there, and it was for a touchdown. So the tight ends had 8 catches for 123 yards and 1 touchdown last night.
Off the top.
Elsewhere in sports yesterday, Tennessee fired head football coach Butch Jones. They're 0-6 in the conference this year. Look, everyone knew he was going to get fired. It was just a question of when. So the questions now might become who replaces Butch Jones at Tennessee.
Yeah, Dan Mullen's name has come up a lot, the head coach at Mississippi State, who they almost pulled off the upset of Alabama. Mullen's name is going to come up for the Tennessee job, for the Florida job. He's doing well there in Mississippi State. And actually, my son, first and last, brought up a good question, and it's a universal question, is what do you want to do? Mississippi State, you win 9 games a year. He said they may build a statue for you over time. You do that in Florida and Tennessee and not be in the mix for anything, you're not going to last very long. So it's what direction do you want to go? But for Butch Jones, it's out. He was 0-5 in his time against Alabama, 1-4 against Florida, 2-3 against Georgia, 2-2 against Vanderbilt. Since the SEC formed, Tennessee has had 3 30-point losses in the same season. Only 3 times. 2 of those have been under Butch Jones, including this season.
So they've been getting worse.
Yeah, it was going to happen.
Off the top.
And finally, after their convincing win over Notre Dame on Saturday, Miami jumped all the way up to number 2 in the AP poll behind Alabama. That is the highest ranking for the U since 2003. We'll, of course, get the updated college football playoff rankings tomorrow night on ESPN. And in just a little while, Mike and I will tell you what we think.
Yes.
Where we think these teams should fall right now. Let's make that off the top with Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. They'll compare rates for you so you get the best deal even if it's not with Progressive, saving you time and money. Now that's Progressive. Call or click today. And I mentioned the Patriots beating the Broncos last night with the all 3 phases. It wasn't just the kick return. They blocked a punt.
Yes, they did.
Denver muffed a punt.
Right.
So it was really just a disaster. The Broncos everything that possibly can be going wrong is going wrong. They've lost 5 straight games, and they've fallen pretty much hopelessly out of everything.
Yeah, they really have. We thought, a lot of us said at the beginning of the season that we thought that there would be 3 teams from the AFC West in this: Kansas City, the Raiders, and the Broncos. Now the Broncos and the Chargers both have only 3 wins. They're 3-6. What a loss for the Chargers that was yesterday.
They find new ways to lose games.
It's inexplicable sometimes of what's going on with them. But the Chiefs, the only team in that division with a winning record, sitting at 6-3. The Raiders second at 4-5. So you're not getting 3 out of there, that's for sure. And with the Broncos, listen, the bottom line is they have quarterback issues. And you could say that about a number of teams in the NFL. What's tough for them and for Bronco fans is you have a really good defense. We've seen play really well. And until you can get the offense to come to the table a little bit more, even though, because they're going to hang on to the fact that they won a Super Bowl leaning on their defense when the offense between Peyton Manning and Brock Osweiler wasn't really getting it done. The defense isn't playing to that level, but it's still a really, really good defense, but it needs to play so much better from ahead, which most defenses really do. But especially when you have pass rushers like the Denver Broncos do, and they just don't have an offense right now that can put enough points on the board to get them in that position.
And bear in mind, their defense hasn't played well either. And maybe they're just kind of packing it in a little bit, seeing the hopelessness of what they're trying to do. But last week was the week, my favorite stat of the week. The Broncos went into their game in Philly last week as the number 1 scoring defense in the NFL, and the Eagles scored so many points they ran out of fireworks. They couldn't shoot off fireworks anymore in Philadelphia because they had run out. That's how many points they scored. They scored 51. The Patriots scored 41 on them yesterday, and afterwards, Tom Brady, in typical Tom Brady fashion, talking about all 3 phases.
I thought we did a good job really staying balanced. I thought playing from ahead was really important all night. We played really good complementary football. Special teams played great, defense played great, and then, we just tried to hold up our end of the bargain. It was a great team win. When we play well, it looks pretty good, and it's probably been more uneven the first 8 games of the year, and tonight was, a really good night for us. So, hopefully we can build on this tonight and, gain some confidence, in all 3 phases, which we played well in all 3 phases.
Obviously, Tom left right there to go to a Sprockets throwback shoot.
Oh, did you see? I thought he looks fantastic. I thought he was going for an audition to play James Bond in the next Bond movie.
He does. You could do it multiple ways. You could do that or a Sprockets reunion, whichever way you want to go. But you can't make mistakes like that against New England because New England doesn't make mistakes. Though what they do is they capitalize on your mistakes, and when you're handing the ball to them occasionally, that this is going to be the ending for you. And again, I'll say, where are the Denver Broncos at the quarterback position? At some point, they're going to have to find out what Paxton Lynch can do. He's had that shoulder, so he hasn't really been physically ready to go, which then leads to coach to say then he's not really mentally ready to go because he hasn't been out there able to do anything. So at some point, they're going to have to find that out and redistribute that quarterback position.
And our friends at Sport Clips ask us to pick an MVP moment of the weekend. It's brought to you by Sport Clips. You watch sports, we cut hair, it's perfect. Sport Clips, it's good to be a guy. And let's give it to Tom Brady because I saw a statistic that is just ridiculous. We all talk about what happens to athletes when they get to reach a certain age. From the time Tom Brady turned 39 years old, he has thrown 47 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. 47 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. And actually, Hembo put that into some context for us. Over the last 2 seasons, over that span, there have been 9 instances of a quarterback throwing at least 4 interceptions in a single game. 9 times, someone has thrown 4 picks in a game. Brady has thrown 4 picks over that span on 775 passing attempts. Brady has legitimately gotten better. Yeah. There isn't any other way to describe it. You can say, oh, well, no. He's gotten better as he's gotten to be this age, which is ridiculous. And right now, Carson Wentz and Brady, I think, are the 2 leading candidates for MVP of the league. He's 40 years old, and he is 100% one of the leading candidates for MVP of the league.
TB12, man, buy in. TB12.
Well, I mean, it's almost impossible not to at least some degree. What he's doing is unprecedented. It should be pointed out. All of us who said, well, it's unlikely that he'll do this, we weren't wrong, and we have to continue over the course of months. But the reality is he is doing stuff
now that
has never been done before.
He's doing it right now, which, again, would have led you to what's going to happen next year. You're not going to have him be your starting quarterback next year, and the whole Jimmy Garoppolo Garoppolo thing. You would have had to pay him or found a way around that. No need there. Garoppolo from the San Francisco side, maybe in another few weeks you may see him on the field. Really quick, Brady took over the top of another list. It was his 86th career regular season road win. He passed Peyton Manning for the most by a starting quarterback in NFL history. So he'll have every record. Up the record.
By the time it's done, he'll have every meaningful record. And let's see, the only one I think at this point he cares about is can he add another ring or two?
Right. Yeah.
And I don't know why anyone would bet against him or them the way they look right now. So that's one side of the ledger. As I mentioned, his Lex Luthor, has been Eli Manning and has been the New York Giants. The two teams, the two times they lost in the Super Bowl, they lost both games that I think they were expected to win. They lost to the Giants. They won't have to worry about that this year. The Giants have sunk in consecutive weeks to embarrassing new lows. First giving up over 50 points in a lifeless performance last week at home against the Rams, then going out and playing a winless 49er team and losing yesterday 31-21.
Yeah, it was not pretty at all. San Francisco put up 474 yards against them. I mean, it was just you've run out of words to kind of describe it anymore. Eli Manning was sacked 3 times in this one. They did rush for over 100 yards if you want to go down that road, but San Francisco ran for 186 yards on them. The one part of the equation that you normally could count on for the New York Giants was their defense. You know, we were just singing their praises last year, the money they spent, the draft picks they had, all coming together. And, man, this was the time. You had Eli at quarterback. You certainly had the receiver in Odell Beckham, and we've seen how that's all gone. But the defense isn't playing as well either. The offense can't really help a whole lot, and the defense isn't really doing a whole lot either. You always say you're in a game because if you have that good defense, but they're not playing that way right now. So it is just – listen, it's falling apart. We talked about last week the players that are speaking up anonymously saying that the coach has lost it. Others have now come out publicly saying those guys are cowards, and our coach, while there's a struggle, think we can get it back. It's just a mess. I think we all know the end game here. You know, like we all knew Butch Jones was not going to be the head coach of Tennessee next year. It was just a matter of when. And I would say the same thing in New York. And you never like to call for somebody's job, and I'm not calling for his job because I have nothing to do with his job. But it's going to end there. I don't think that's really a reach to say that. It's just a matter of when that's going to happen. Are they going to do it during the season? We had Shefty in here saying normally things like that maybe start to happen after Thanksgiving, you know, giving it that amount of time. We'll see. But to me, that's the only question. There are two questions. One's bigger than the other. One is going to be, when is McAdoo fired? Is it during the season or after the season? And then the next, the bigger one, what goes on with Eli Manning? Eli Manning, I think, is going to start the rest of the year unless Ben McAdoo gets fired before the end of the year and they decide we're going to see what we have here. It's going to be an interesting situation. But that, to me, is the bigger question going forward.
Absolutely. And we're going to get to a bunch of sound bites on that. I want to save and make sure that we have plenty of time to get into them in depth because I think there's a lot to it. But you said you've run out of words to describe it. One word that people are using to describe it is quit. People are looking at the effort or lack thereof on that Giant defense. They have given up in their in the last 2 games, they have allowed 4 passing touchdowns of over 40 yards. They're getting run over. They do not seem to be racing to the ball, giving great effort, all that kind of thing. Josine Anderson got a text from one of those sources yesterday saying, I tried to warn you this was going to happen. There are people who are assigning what really is the nastiest 4-letter word in sports to the Giants right now, and the word is quit.
That is. You get that tag to you as an athlete. There's not a whole lot worse than that. And for some of those guys, and listen, we're not in that locker room. We don't know who they are. You're playing for your next coach. But some guys, because of their contracts, they're going to be around, right? I mean, that's just the way it works. A team is not just going to get rid of them and have all that dead money count against them. So some players, by the draw of their contract, are going to be around. I'm not saying that those are players that people are saying this about, but there are some players who know they're in a different position than others. There are many players in that locker room that are playing for their jobs, that a new coach is going to come in at some point and look at tape and say who we keep and who we getting rid of, knowing full well they have to keep X amount of players because of their deals.
All right, well, we're Mike and Mike. We're just getting started here. Presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests, all of them today, Jeff Saturday and Booger McFarland, Gus Malzahn, coach of Auburn, Magic Johnson today.